Welcome back. In this video, I want to show you how try and catch works and how you can manage errors that can happen inside of your application. And we're going to build a very simple application for this example where we get data from the user. So I'm going to use println here to let the user know, please enter a number. Okay, now then we're going to use readln to read whatever the user has entered, and we want to store it inside of a val that I'm going to call number. Okay, so we read this number, and then we want to convert whatever the user has entered into our number. Now the thing is, we know that readln returns a string, but I want to make an int out of it. So I'm going to convert that into an int. Now let's print what the user has entered. User entered number. And let's run our application. This is really simple, but in the next moment we're going to see how it will be overwritten with whatever we want to change. So let me run that, and you see I enter 5 and user entered 5 and the program closes. So now let's rerun this and let me enter an O or a P. Let's do a P. Now you see we get an exception. Our program crashes. And the problem that we get, or the exception that we get, is the number format exception. So basically whenever you create a problem or an error in your application, you get an exception, which there are different types of. So exception, like so, exception, you see this class is the default. There's the Kotlin exception available as well, but you see array store exception, array index out of bounds exception, class not found exception. There are many different exceptions out there, okay? And depending on what you are doing in your program, you will get a different exception. So if you want to collect a file or access a file and the file doesn't exist, you would get the no such file exception. Or if you want to access a variable that doesn't exist, then you would get the Kotlin null pointer exception. So there are many different exceptions out there. Now, how can we handle our error? The thing is, we can use something called try. So instead of running a problematic code, we could go ahead and just do it like so. We run the problematic code inside of a safe environment, which is our try, and then we can catch whatever exception we are going to get. So inside of these brackets, we need to add the exception. So E of type exception. And then we need to add the curly brackets. So this is the general structure. You have the try keyword, curly brackets. Inside of the curly brackets, what you want to execute. So error prone code you want to execute. And then here in the catch, what should happen when an error occurs. And then in our case, I'm just going to print the error. So println E dot message. So E is an exception object, and the exception class has this thing called message. So it has this property called message, which is of type string nullable. So there can be a message or there can be no message. So that's what this question mark means, that it could be null as well. Now there is also this finally block. So there's this other keyword which is called finally, and I'm going to say println this will be executed regardless. So error or no error. Okay, and yeah, let's go ahead and run this once again to see what's up. So let's first enter an actual number, and we see user entered 5, and then we see this will be executed regardless, error or no error, and there's an S missing. So if I rerun this again and I enter my name instead of a number, and for input string Dennis, this will be executed regardless. So what we have gotten is this for input string Dennis comes from this here. This is the E message that we've gotten. And this print statement here, this finally block, was executed even though we did get an error. So here it would make sense to add something like error, and then so that people know that this is actually an error message, like so. Let's rerun this, and I need to finish this quotation here. Let's rerun this. Now let me enter Dennis, and we say error for input string Dennis. So we get this input string that we entered, and that generated an error. That's what this exception gives us. That's what it caught. So it basically caught the error and stopped our program from crashing. You saw without this try catch block, we crashed our application. Okay, and then we have this finally block, which just says, okay, whatever happens, I'm going to execute it. So what this could do is, it could also just say, number will be 0. So every single time, and actually let's set up number outside so that we can actually use it in there. So number will be of type int. Okay, now we need to get rid of this val. So basically we're saying number will be of type int, then we set number, and then we want to overwrite number inside of the final block. Now if we want to be able to overwrite it, we need to use var instead of val. And there we are. So now what our code would do is, it would get the number of the user, then it would try to convert that into an integer, and would like to, well, try to print it out. And then if there is an error, it will catch it and display the error. And then either way, if it caught the error, or there was an error, or there was no error, regardless, it just went ahead and assigned 0 to number. All right, so this should give you a general idea as to what try and catch blocks do. We are going to use try and catch every now and then. Especially it's useful whenever you don't have control over what happens. So for example, if you have code that tries to connect to the internet, you don't have control over how good the internet connection is, or whether the website that you try to connect to works. Or if you want to get user input, you have no control over the user input. The user could put whatever in. Obviously you can limit the type of information that the user can enter by modifying the keyboard that will be opened, for example, in an edit field, but other than that, you have no control over it, which is why try and catch blocks are really powerful, and we're going to use them every now and then.